So today we are in Adelaide. We're at the Centre for Cancer Biology to meet with Stuart Pitson, who is one of our funded researchers. Stuart, lovely to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you too.
So, Stuart, science. Have you always been interested in science? I mean, is that what you wanted to do when you were a little tucker at school or in university? I mean, how did you go from school to uni to running these giant research programs?
Well, I actually grew up on a farm, so I was going to be a farmer when I was a kid. So all the way through probably primary school, I was going to be a farmer, but I have an older brother, and so he took over the farm. So there was no room for a second son on the farm, as my mum denies saying that, but that's certainly was the case. So I needed to find something else, and I was just really good at science. I just enjoyed science. I was good at it. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I finished high school, but I was good at science, so I went to La Trobe Uni and did a science degree and just loved it. Just loved it.
And did you you end up going from university and then did a PhD after that? Is that how it worked?
Yeah, so in the third year of my degree, I did a research project, and I really hadn't had much exposure to research before. You did a little bit of practical experience during the course, but research is something different. And so I just absolutely loved it. I was supposed to spend 40 hours, I think, during the year on this research project and spent about 120 hours. I just loved it, and that just precipitated me going into a PhD because I just really wanted to do research.
You wanted to do research from there. And did you do your PhD at La Trobe as well, or did you go somewhere else for it?
No, we did it at La Trobe. So I did it in the same lab that I did that research project in. So I had a great supervisor there, Bob Sevier, who was just really engaging and just really put that passion, I guess, for research into me. So.
Yeah, awesome. And so does that lead, you do the PhD, and then from there, do you find yourself looking for work in science? Do you do a postdoctorate, or what is the process?
Well, I'm showing my age here, but back then
I know it's a tough question to ask.
Before the internet, really, before email, and so I got close to finishing my PhD and just sent out letters to about 20 different labs around the world that I thought were doing really great work.
Nice.
And with my CV, and because I wanted to travel. I wanted to sort of get out and experience a bit. Having grown up in the country, I just wanted to go and travel. And I ended up getting a letter back from a lab in the Netherlands that had said they'd loved my CV, they'd put it into a fellowship application without my knowledge, and I got the fellowship. Congratulations, can you start next month?
Wow.
So here I was, a country boy, having never left the country before, suddenly embarking on this adventure to the Netherlands to work.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How long were you in the Netherlands?
Almost 2 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, what a great pathway. And so that was, you would consider that would be your first job. What was did you come back to Australia after the Netherlands?
Yes, so I came back to, after those almost 2 years, I came back to Sydney. So I worked at the University of New South Wales for a year. The nature of uncertainty in science and grant funding, I guess, is I was on the last year of a grant in Sydney, and they didn't get a renewal of that grant. And so I was out of a job after that. And looked around the country for other positions and found a job in Adelaide. Managed to interview for it on Christmas Eve, I think it was, and got the job a few days later, and moved to Adelaide, thinking I'd be here for a couple of years. And here I am 23 years later, I'm still here in Adelaide. It's not a bad place, Adelaide.
Yeah, it's pretty great. That's one of the hardest things, isn't it, with research, and why funding is so everything, because you can get up to the point where you're looking for that next bit of research and the next bit of funding, and if that doesn't come through, then it's not just a matter of, all right, that funding cycle has finished. It's a matter that often everything is finished and it's done, and you need to pick yourself up and go and find where there is funding available somewhere else, or a whole nother job.
That's right. I mean, that in that example in Sydney, that project was going incredibly well, and we were publishing really well. But that just funding didn't come through, so that was the end of that program. So it's a tough, and I guess I see a different side of it now that I'm running groups. Is one of the big pressure points, really, of trying to secure that funding, and you spend years putting research groups together that have the best possible people and the best skill set, and you need to keep them going. Otherwise, if you miss out on funding, then you have to let people go and you start back at scratch again of having to build those teams up, that it can be the most efficient use of the funds to drive the research forward.
Yeah, very, very, very challenging. Very challenging structure at times, I understand. And you mentioning about a team, you've got a team behind you with regard, so that the amount that we fund you and the grant that we fund you from Box Rallies now is yourself, but I understand you also have other people that work with you on the project?
Yeah, so I've got a team of about 15 at the moment. So Jason Powell is one of the senior people who was a co-applicant on that grant and is really driving that project. So I have a number of different projects going, and he's the one really driving this particular one. And he's got a research assistant and a student sort of working with him as well on related areas of that project. So
yeah, I think we'll probably bump into Jason a little bit when we go and have a look at the lab.
Yeah.
So tell me some of the things that you like about doing what you do.
Look, we're really privileged to do the research that we do. I mean, we have a fair bit of autonomy of what we want to do. We can follow our interests in being able, if we're interested in a particular area, we can follow it. Obviously, we need grant funding to be able to back that up, but and so you need to do the work that will enable you to get the grant funding and follow up to try and improve the health of patients and outcomes for patients. But there are other aspects that you can follow up that may not necessarily be directly related to patient outcomes, but understanding a disease more, just curiosity based. And I think that's one of the really exciting things that we have as scientists, to be able to follow up those things that we're really curious about. I think we also, we get influx of students all the time. That's really, it's really nice to have that young people coming in with enthusiasm and thirst for knowledge. So I think that really is one of the great privileges we have, to be able to nurture those students through too. And I guess they're the sort of two main things that I really love about this job.
Nice. So you mentioned, and you were talking about it as we were coming in, about grant funding and the application process associated with it. It's one of those things that is, every single researcher obviously talks about it, because that's, money makes the world go round. But how many research grants do you think you would write annually, and how much time does that take? Because some of them are bigger than others, and some of them are enormous. And I suppose you've being the head of the lab, you need to write a lot of grants to be able to make sure that you're funding for a lot of. You mentioned 15 people before.
Yeah. So I guess we've been fortunate that the success rates of grant funding is a problem at the moment. So success rates for most schemes are sort of in that 5 to 10% of grants would get funded. 5% of grants that are submitted would get funded. Wow. That's pretty harsh. We're lucky that we're probably hitting 20-25% of the grants that we submit we get funded. But it still means, to keep a lab of 15 people going, we have to put a lot of grant applications in. So if we're only getting a quarter of those funded, so probably a quarter to a third of my time would go in a year in grant writing, because that's my That's how I see it. As my responsibility of the lab is to write those grants or drive those grant applications, or get assistance from my senior people to help with that. But that's how I see my role, at least one of the major parts of my role, is to bring in that funding. So that brings a fair bit of stress as well, I guess, because you've got these people that you've put together, that are highly skilled and are best placed to be able to drive our research forward, but their salaries are tenuous, because most grants are between 1 and 3 years long. So that adds a fair bit of stress to that. But probably about a third of the year, I would say, would be writing grants, and the number of grants might be 10 to 15, and sometimes they're big grants where you might be applying for $1 or $2 million grants, but other times it's $40,000, $50,000 grants, because you get 2 or 3 of those, and that can really drive a project forward. One alone, you get a bit of a progress, and you might be able to then get some preliminary data for the next year's grant to get a bigger grant from that.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. How about let's go back to, say, this is a big general question, the last 23 years you were talking about of working in science. What would you say is your most cherished achievement during that time? Can you name one?
It's probably not One, I think that really, as I come back to those students, just getting those students through, and really, I'm really proud actually of the students that have come through. We're not in my office here, but I've got a whole shelf of PhD and honours and masters theses that are bound up there and sitting on my shelf, and that makes me really proud. I think to actually think, well, I've helped all those students, and particularly if they go on to do exciting things. I've got one student that's started a lab up in Austria. She's doing phenomenally well, and that brings me enormous joy actually to see that she started out as a wide-eyed, bushy-tailed student coming into the lab with not a lot of knowledge, and we managed to sort of mould her in some small way into a high-class scientist.
Awesome. And so therefore, from there, where do you see, or would you like to see yourself in 5 years' time?
Yeah, look, I think, well, here in Adelaide, we're going through a particularly exciting period, I think, because there's the mergers of University of South Australia and University of Adelaide. So what the future actually holds, nobody really knows of how that merger is going to work, but I think, I don't see a huge number of changes for me. I think, I've got this nice group of people that I work with in my lab. I hope to be able to translate the work that we're doing now into better therapies for patients. So I hope that in 5 years' time we have that in clinical trials or in patients. So I'm not thinking necessarily about me, but where our research might go. And if we can make a difference for patients, that's what I'm in the game for, to be honest.
Totally. Absolutely. All right, we'll just finish on a couple of little fun ones. What's your interest outside of cancer research? What do you like to do when you're not here?
Yeah, I love spending time with my family. I've got 3 beautiful kids, and that's really my exit from this place here and the stresses that can come along from science. I have a motorbike that I love riding as well. I've got a cruiser that I love getting out in the Adelaide Hills on the weekends, and just that can blow off a fair bit of steam.
I bet. And how about your bucket list? Anything on your bucket list you want to do yet?
Look, I didn't necessarily have a big bucket list, but I was meant to be walking the Kokoda track last month, but it got closed because some of the local Papua New Guineans were protesting about some internal issues there. So that got cancelled. So it's going to be postponed until next year. So that's on my bucket list for next year to walk Kokoda. It's an incredibly arduous walk, 96 kilometres through heat and I think it's 11,000 metres of elevation change. So 6,000 metres up, 6,000 metres down or so.
Incredible.
So I've been doing a lot of training for that. So that's my current bucket list, is to do that.
Yeah, wonderful.
And then we'll move on to whatever the next one will be.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely.
Look forward to walking with you through the lab.
Yeah, no problems.
Cheers, mate.